St. Joseph's College. Welcome to SJC Student-Alumni Conversations, hosted by the Office of Alumni Engagement, the Child Study Club from the Brooklyn campus, and the Educators Club from the Long Island campus. My name is Lisa Glasso, and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Engagement, and a proud alumna from the class of 2008 and the class of 2013. I will be your host for this evening, as well as two of our Esse Non Videri student ambassadors, Asma Hussein and Taylor Callahan. I want to thank everyone for coming, especially our students, faculty, and our Esse Non Videri Gala Award winners, Joanna Biss from the class of 2016 and the class of 2018, and Jaden Lawrence from the class of 2020. SJC's first ever Esse Non Videri Gala Awards dinner last November honored the extraordinary efforts of St. Joseph's College alumni teachers and administrators who work in the field of education or have retired in the last year. Among them was Joanna Biss, who received the COVID-19 Pandemic Award, and Jaden Lawrence, who received the Rising Star Award. Joanna and Jade, thank you for all you do for St. Joseph's College, and it's an honor to have you here today to enlighten our future educators on this evening's topic about using technology in the classroom. To start off this evening's program, I'm curious to know who's in the room today. So I am going to set a poll. And my question is, to fill the blank. I'm enrolled at St. Joseph's College as we already have some answers coming by. Traditional four-year student, transfer student, SJC online student, graduate student, none of the above. You can select multiple choices as well. Wow, okay, so I'm gonna start closing the poll in a little bit in 3, 2, 1. All right, I'm gonna share the results. All right, we got a little bit of everybody in the house today. So, this is great to see. All right. It's my pleasure to introduce you to Asma Hussein, President of the Educators Club on the Long Island campus. Take it away, Asma.
Thank you, Lisa. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Jade Lawrence. Jade Lawrence received her undergraduate degree in child study in 2020 from the Long Island campus and is currently a preschool teacher at Bayview Elementary in the West Islip School District. Jade finished her St. Joseph's College career amid the COVID-19 pandemic, but that didn't stop her from completing over 100 hours of professional development before graduation. 1 year later, leading a classroom is her favorite place to be. Jade rose to the top in her first year of teaching, overcoming challenges, and found a way of creative teaching to educate and connect with her students while offering a source of support and encouragement. Please welcome Jade Lawrence.
Good evening, everyone. Hi, I'm Jade. It is a pleasure to be speaking to all of you. I'm so excited to share some really awesome technology resources with you. So I am going to share my screen really quick. So technology in the classroom. It's a really great resource and there are lots of great things out there. I've already taken this year, I've taken, I would say 8 out of my 10 hours so far have been about technology. So I'm gonna share some of the new things I learned with you this year and just things that I've used on a daily basis. So the first thing I want to do is I want to send out a poll. I want to know which of these technology sites have you heard of before?
All right. The choices are Bamboozle, Classroom Screen, Nearpod, Seesaw, Smart Exchange. And we're going to close the poll in 3, 2, 1. And I'll share the results.
So that's really awesome. So I'm going to talk to you guys about Nearpod, Seesaw, Smart Exchange, Classroom Screen, and Bamboozle. So we're going to start with Nearpod. So what I'm going to do is I'm kind of going to just walk you through each of these sites and just kind of show you where you can explore. I know that there are lots of different ranges of teachers in this video right now. So I'll just kind of show you what I know as a kindergarten preschool teacher. and what I use, and then you can adapt it to how you would like. So I'm going to start with Nearpod. So this is basically interactive slideshows, and they're some of my favorites to do, especially with the little guys. Some of the school districts will have devices for students, such as iPads. So last year in kindergarten, my students had iPads, and we were able to practice CVC words through Nearpod. And it was one of my favorite things because I could actually send it out to the students to do independently, or we could do it together as a class, and I can actually connect it to their iPads. And when I change my screen on the smartboard, it changes automatically on their iPads. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through what this kind of lesson would look like. So let's say I have this up on the board. I've connected all of their iPads. They all look like this. It's going to be great. This is the topic, the grade, and they actually give you the learning standards that go with it when you get the pre-made ones, or you can make your own, but I like to use the ones I already made. So it gives you the directions. A lot of them are exit tickets that are already created, but I've actually used them as like mini lessons. So it starts with a question, and it says, what word matches the picture? So identify what the picture is. And if I were doing this as a whole class thing, I would say, does anybody know what this is? And we would share it together as it's a tag. Okay, and then you present to kids and say, okay, let's tap this out, T-A-G, make the sounds. So then you would figure out if it's A or B. Now, you can change it and you can say, okay, I don't want anybody to tell their answer. I want you to choose your own. And that can be also a form of assessment, which is why I really liked using this, because kids couldn't look at each other's iPads and they couldn't cheat off of each other and just copy other kids' work down. So it really gave me a sense of what my students knew and what they didn't know about CVC words. They're pretty easy, and as you can see, there's other related content when you look something up. And once the student completes the Nearpod assessment, there's like a button that'll say submit for them, and they can submit it to you, and you can review how long they spent on each slide and what they did, and if they have to draw pictures for it, and you can review all of that information. All right, so the next one I am going to show you is going to be Seesaw. And I just used Seesaw today with my preschoolers. So Seesaw is really cool, but I like using it for whole group rather than more independent work. You can, again, like Nearpod, you can send this out to kids, but I like doing it together because it's a lot more fun. So this was something that we did today. My preschoolers do not have devices, so we did this on the smartboard. So I will show you what we did today. So today we learned about small, medium, and large, and how to differ between them and how to categorize them. So here are a bunch of different objects. So what I did was I had each student come up, and let's say they pick the paper clip and they drag it over and they slide it into small section. Now this was already pre-made. Again, why reinvent the wheel when somebody's already done it so nicely for you? It's one of the best things about technology resources is that a lot of it out there is already done for you. So this was what we did today, and it took us honestly about 15 minutes because it also leads to discussions in the classroom, and it kind of gives you a sense of, okay, maybe this kid doesn't respond well to my support, but they might, what's the word I'm looking for, sorry. They might react better to peer support. So I have kids that work in teams when we do seesaws, and they compete against each other and they work well together. They all decide if the answer is right or wrong. And you might be like, how do you do that in preschool? Well, you teach the kids to talk to each other, and this is just a really great way to do it. So this was the lesson that I did today. And we're going to delete that. So you can go into activities. So I'm just going to show you some of the ones that you can find. So here's a coin and money match one. So again, you can send this out to students for like a quick little assessment. They send it back to you, you check their work. This one is ing words. So they have to, here's their letter chart, they give it to them, and they have to write in the letters that match the picture. and you can see what their train of thought was. You can record their screens and they can send it to you, so you can actually watch their train of thoughts. So this resource also works really well for remote learning, because you can post these on your Google Classroom and the kids can go right into them, finish them, send them to you, and you get to watch what they did. Here's another CVC word that I did from last year. So the kids just kind of had to plug in the letters. It sounds really simple, but it's so easy to collect data this way. All right, so now I'm going to show you Classroom Screen. So Classroom Screen is one of my favorite things because it has every resource that you ever want to leave up on a board ever. So the only downside for Classroom Screen is that you can't save your screens unless you pay for the subscription. So, but you can do it for free. You just have to set it up every day by yourself. But I do that anyway because I like to change it. So you can choose a background. So let's choose something pretty. So let's say I wanted to do mountains today. You can insert your class list, your like roster, and you can choose a random student's name. You ever use those popsicle sticks and then a kid comes over to your desk and knocks them over? Yeah, that happened to me today. So I like using this a lot better. So I'll just copy and paste from like a Google Doc and I'll put my students' names in here and it'll say choose and it'll randomly choose one. Writing numbers. Did this a couple weeks ago when we were practicing. Start with a dice. I would like to roll the dice, please. And it'll show them a number. All right, that's cool. It's a great resource, right? My absolute favorite of Classroom Screen is the sound level. I use this all the time and it goes well with the work symbols. So if I want silence, please do not make the sensitivity level go up. Please do not go past it. And I will also use the traffic light to let them know like where we're at. And the good thing about this is you can make these as big as you would like, as small as you would like, move them anywhere on the screen. You can, it's just really flexible and it makes my life 10 times easier. You can set a timer up on the board and it will actually start to show how much time is left, which is really good for my students since they can't really tell time. So that's a really helpful resource. Stopwatch, clock, and the calendar. So all of this stuff is just really helpful, especially if you want to leave this up during the day or like this is your go-to screen. So let's say your kids are doing independent work. You want, silence, you put the noise level on and you put a timer on and say, okay, you have 10 minutes to do this. 10 minutes quiet working time, 10 minutes quiet reading time. It just kind of has everything you need in one place. So I don't need to go out and buy a timer. I don't need to go out and buy the traffic light off of Amazon and then Cricut labels and things like that. It's all right here for me. So this is definitely one of my favorite resources, and I took a professional development on it and learned about it this year. So I'm in love, let's just say. All right, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is Smart Exchange. So a lot of buildings have smart boards. Smart Exchange, again, free resources already made for you. Do not make your own. You cannot reinvent the wheel. I found this because I was looking for a handwriting template. I do not feel like drawing lines and little dots and dashes when I'm trying to teach students how to form their letters. So I found this. All you have to do is download it to your computer and open it up. And it comes up on your smartboard and you can write on it and it's in Smart Notebook. So it's really, really easy and you can download as many as you want. There's all different kinds of resources. So the handwriting template is my absolute favorite. I also like the hundreds chart. And I use this in my morning message every morning with my preschoolers when we counted up to the 100th day of school. And then I changed it. I made my own based off of this in Smart Notebook. And now we're counting down how many days of school we have left. So it's really fun. It's an easy manipulative. I used this a little bit last year in kindergarten. I didn't really like it that much, but it's an attendance thing that you can basically leave up on the smartboard. And as kids come in, they move their little bird and they tell you if they're buying school lunch or they have home lunch. And I don't know, it's just a really cute resource, and you don't have to make it yourself, which is really time consuming. Trust me, I tried to make all these things and it doesn't end well usually. So here's something that kind of goes with one of like a lesson, living and non-living. So again, you download this. That's how easy it is, and it pops right up on your smartboard. Kids can drag the words and drag them into the corresponding parts. So it's just, I don't know, it's all these things on smartboard that are already made for you. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is a new resource that I found out about this year, and it's called Bamboozle. And I heard it and I was like, I can never use like computer games in pre-K because these guys are so little and they can't read, and like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to make like games fun for them? Like, yeah, you can play Jeopardy. Yeah, you can try and play Kahoot with them, but it's kind of hard. This is so easy, so easy. So you can create a free account. This is my free account. And you can search in the library for games. So let's say you were looking for, yeah, all the pictures are funny. My kids like when I search for games because they just like to watch everything. So let's say you were looking for numbers, like number review. So here are all of the pre-made ones already. Again, you can also make your own. Why would you? They already made them for you. So I did this one today. We were reviewing some colors, letters, and numbers. So it shows you the questions, what picture goes with it. And when you click on it, it will show you what the actual answer is. So that's all the cards for this game. So I'm going to set you up like we're going to play the game. So you hit play. Now, these 4 options are the ones if you pay for the premium, you can get. So there's a memory game, 4 in a row, tic-tac-toe, and there's bingo. We're just going to play Bamboozle. So here are the settings that you have. And these are really important to me because you can adapt them for many different age groups and just whatever you're feeling that day. So here's how something like this would look in my classroom. I have 4 tables in my classroom, red, yellow, blue, and green. So I would change the teams to 4. I let my students make their own teams. Stick with me. I know that sounds crazy having a bunch of 4-year-olds choose their own teams, but it works. Grid size, I always make it 24 because I have 20 students. I want everybody to at least have one turn. Your options are kind of limited unless you pay for it, so it doesn't really matter as much. The power-ups, same thing, and I'll explain those. So virus, reset all scores, the shark, other team loses 5 to 25 points. Magnet, you take. Sometimes you just win points. You can steal points. But our absolute favorite in preschool is the themes. So today we started spring. So it's spring vocabulary. And we play the classic version. So this is what it looks like. So when it comes up, it looks like this. And all of these icons, my kids can tell me what they are. If you don't choose a theme like that for icons to come up, numbers will come up instead. But my kids don't know numbers, all their numbers yet. They don't know numbers 1 through 24. So I like the pictures better. And plus they're like, oh, I want this one. So like nobody really cares which one they choose. So here are your teams at the top. Everybody starts with 0 points. You can edit the team names. So if I put in red, green, blue, and yellow. And there they are. There's all my teams. So let's say a kid comes up and they pick the bumblebee. What is this? And they say, Miss Lawrence, this is a cat. I would say, yes, okay. Or, oops, nope, you got it wrong. When you say okay, it automatically awards them the points and it moves to the next team. Now, the one interesting thing that I do with this is when my kids make their teams, we focus on social emotional development. You might be like, how do you do that? This looks pretty academic to me. Well, we make them discuss and decide who's going to take a turn. And for 4-year-olds, that's a really hard thing to do. They don't like to share and they don't like to not go first. But I will have students sit there and say, okay, I'm going to take a turn, and they'll get up and I'll ask the entire table. I'll say, okay, green table, are we all okay with this? And if one kid shakes their head no, they have to go back and they have to talk about it. So we use things like, well, go and ask them why. Say, why can't I have a turn? And they'll say, okay, well, you can't have a turn because I want a turn. Well, how about you take a turn after me? And we'll teach them those problem solving skills. So yes, this content is pretty easy. Like, great, you just won 20 points for your team. You get to take 10 points. It's simple and it's easy, but it prompts them to use that problem solving thinking that we really love in pre-K. So if you were to do the study version, you can click that, and it's kind of like flashcards for yourself. So if you want to do this with the older kids or do this with CVC words and put the word and the picture above it, you can click and you can do it yourself, and they can check it themselves if you want to send this out on your Google Classroom. And it shows you how many right, how many got wrong, which ones you weren't sure about, and you can do it as many times as you want. If you want to do the slideshow, this is used for instructional. So here's my pre-K review. Again, I tap through, what is this? This is the color yellow. This is the color brown. And I would explain it to them rather than them have to tell me the answer. So that's just a little bit about Bamboozle. And those are just some of my favorite technology resources. And I learned a lot about most of them this year, honestly, because everybody kind of went crazy when we all had to go remote learning, and they were like, how do we do these things? How do we get better? How do we reach our students better? So when you guys become teachers, if you're not already in the classroom, take the technology professional development. As boring as it may seem for an adult to sit through a professional development on Bamboozle and playing basically Jeopardy for 2 hours, it's worth it because it makes your life 10 times easier. And that's kind of what technology does in the classroom, is it just makes our life so much easier. All right, thank you guys very much. I'm gonna hand it back over.
Thank you for an amazing presentation, Jade. I loved all of your examples, and I will definitely be using them in the future. If anyone has questions for Jade during her presentation, please type them in the chat box, and we'll try our best to answer them during our Q&A session. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Taylor Callahan, President of the Child Study Club on the Brooklyn campus. Take it away, Taylor.
Thank you, Ozma. To continue our SJC alumni conversation, please help me in welcoming Joanna Biss. Joanna Biss currently teaches 4th grade at PS 253 in Brooklyn, New York, and received her undergraduate degree in child study in 2016 and her master's degree in childhood special education in 2018 from SJC's Brooklyn campus. Joanna is a first-generation college graduate from a Polish household and was born and raised in Brooklyn. Her favorite quote about teaching she learned her freshman year at SJC, and it has motivated her ever since. Every child deserves a champion adult who will never give up on them and who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best they can possibly be. By Rita F. Pearson. It is my pleasure to introduce Joanna Biss. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to do this. Technology is one of my passions in teaching. Especially the past 2 years, we've been swimming in technology and using it in different ways. But this year has been different. We've been having a little bit of a tech cleanse in my school. We've been trying to get back to pencil and paper, which I also adore as well. But I want to bring those two worlds together for all of you. Like Jade, during COVID, when we were at home learning, we kind of gave ourselves a crash course on how to use many different tools. But I'm going to share some of the tools I learned while teaching online and trying to bring them now into our classrooms in person. Let me just share my screen really quick. I also created a Google Classroom for everyone because I know that when you go to these kind of things, you see tools and you're trying to frantically write it down, try to research everything all presenters. But I did create a Google Classroom. I'll share a link in the chat in a second, and you can join my classroom so that you have all these tools at your fingertips. And I'll be sharing that in a second. But first, I have a...
Okay, so Joanna's question is, what would you like to help using technology with? Assessing understanding, engaging teaching material, game-based learning, showing information in multiple formats. Oh, we're going back and forth. You can answer multiple choices too, if you want. All right, we are going to be closing the poll in 3, 2, 1. And I will share the results.
Awesome. So I see a lot of us are interested in creating engaging teaching material, which is awesome, especially if you work in the DOE and you follow a Danielson rubric. You do get a huge part of your observation is connected to engagement and how you're using materials in the classroom to engage your students. And game-based learning is one of my favorite ways of learning. I am a special education teacher. I teach ICT, and I have multiple different learning styles in my classroom. So these are great ways to kind of assess understanding and get the kids motivated, because it's hard to do math when you can't remember your multiplication facts, or it's really hard to read when you're having trouble tapping out the sounds, even in 4th grade. So I've been using technology as a way to help get everyone engaged in their learning. My students love the quizzes, Quizlet option. I'm going to be showing that in a few seconds. But this Google Forms thing blew my mind when I was teaching in the COVID classroom. So one way I had to teach was using Google Slides, because I didn't have my smart notebook. It took a very long time for my notebook to load on Google Meet. So I really got into Google Slides. And honestly, I do prefer them sometimes over Smart Notebook. It depends on the style, but here's a way to kind of spice up your presentation, especially if you're a student teaching, you're traveling from like school to school, you don't know what technology they have, or if you're not sure about which programs. I know some schools have Promethean boards, some schools have smart boards, some only have like a display. So Google Slides is like a universal. I love adding GIFs. Like when I was teaching cause and effect, I put a GIF of a cat moving its hand on the table with a glass, and the glass would fall. So I go, okay, guys, what was the cause of the glass falling? They said the cat pushed it. And why did the cat? And then you go through like questionings, and they have organic conversations. And the fact that they giggle, you know, it's the middle of the day, it's 10:15, and they see a cat pushing a glass, and they're learning about cause and effect relationships. It's a great way to kind of bring whatever you're teaching a bit more alive, especially if you have L learners, especially if you have special needs students. They need that visualization sometimes to put two things together. Sometimes I just put GIFs for fun. You know, I want them to do independent work, so I'm going to have a little GIF of me scribbling. And that gets them excited. That makes them like laugh a little. And they're like, okay, now I'm going to do my work, because Miss Biss is dancing on the screen, making sure that she's doing her work too. Another good thing is if you assign slides to someone, right? If you have the privilege of having a one-to-one school, meaning that you have one technology piece to one child, or if you have a student maybe quarantining and they have to do work at home, or if you want them to study something, you could put hyperlinks inside the slides to help take them to different places. I built like classroom libraries this way. So we have a culture of the month. So what I've been doing with my students is I build a culture library. So each book is put on a slide, and they could click and they could listen to a read aloud when they're done work, or if there's a test going on and they're finished early, they could just put their headphones in and get on the computer, or at home, if they forget their independent reading book, they have those libraries already there for them. And my favorite is also using them as a task card, which means basically it's like a glorified worksheet where you can have them. And I'm going to show you some examples in a second. So this was my classroom for the longest time. All these pieces, when I put them on my Google Classroom, are hyperlinked. So this would be like where you see like the parts with like a Google Meet symbol, a Google Classroom symbol. That's when I actually had virtual learning. But the tools on this Unit 1 Lenape, that was our Native American unit. It's our social studies unit that's tied in with our ELA. I had my Porter portal there. I had videos, links, everything. And I'm reusing it every year. All these things are hyperlinked. So when I'm presenting, you can't see the hyperlinks. That's the one thing you need to remember. So you would have to take it off the presentation and just see it as a regular slide. Next, here's my task card. So here are my directions for my students, right? Here, they're working independently. Maybe they finished something early. I can have them hyperlink, as you see, where it says, click me to see how a ukulele is played. I hyperlink something into the slide. I put the questions, and these boxes are already pre-typed. So it's like those, you put them usually in your presentation, but here it's actually great for students because they know exactly where to put their answers. And it continues. You can see here, the dot was movable. So they would move their dot onto their answer, fill in the answer box here. And I'm going to take it off so you can actually see something that I did.
Oh, Joanna, are you there?
My worst nightmare came true.
It's okay, we got you.
All right, so as you guys know, technology is never 100%, just like Jade said. So when you're using too many things, sometimes it likes to kick you out, and especially likes to do it to me. My students will also laugh. They had such a great humor about this. I'm gonna go back to sharing my screen. And that's another life thing about teaching. Always take everything with a laugh, because the kids know, like, you're not doing anything on purpose. And if they see you laugh, it's very human. So it's very good for them. So what I was trying to do, let's get back to this. I would have students try to check in with themselves after they would do a task card. And something that I found out that was really cool is that you can actually screen record GIFs. So let's see if it'll let me do that. It's saying my internet is unstable again. It's all right. We'll figure it out. Well, if you join my Google Classroom, and these slides will be available, you'll see what I mean. I'm going to move on because it doesn't like this slide apparently. Let's try another tool, Google Forms. So Google Forms, again, this is like if you have a one-to-one, if you have technology, if you have a Google Classroom. Most schools now do have a Google Classroom for their students and their and anyone in the school building, whether it's inside or outside of school, because it's just it's a safety thing now. So the way I would use Google Forms is not your typical way. I wouldn't put them as just filling in answers because I needed answers. What I really wanted to use my Google Forms is kind of like a reteach to see where my students are at, right? And you could also kind of see which students are getting the information and how they're answering to get the correct or wrong answer. And I'll show you what that means. So when designing a Google form, you could ask questions in multiple answering modes, meaning you could have them fill it in, you could do multiple choice, you could have a picture and then they have to write about it. They could do a matching, they could do a checkbox. It's very multifaceted and you could really take advantage of that. So when you use quiz mode, it actually calculates it like a test. And thank God the Google gods heard us. And it saves automatically now, which is the best thing, because when we were teaching in COVID, nothing would save. And my kids were like, everything's gone. But now it doesn't go away anymore. So it's wonderful. So when you have either of these modes, you can make sure that the students are recording their information and it's being saved. And you could also scaffold what you're teaching. You could see which questions you want to focus on. You could make certain questions, like if you put an asterisk, it's required. If there's no asterisk, it's not required. So you could see if those students are not doing those required questions, you could kind of figure out why. Maybe if you're doing a social, I used to use it for social emotional. Some kids would leave things out and then I would know, let me call, let me see what's going on, because I don't like the way they're answering this Google form. And you could always add images to these questions. And the best part is you could decide who to send them out to. You don't always have to make sure that this that every kid is doing it. You could check who did it. You could see how long it took them. You could be like a little private detective to see how long it took them to do your activity. So the way you could really use your Google Forms to the greatest advantage is the way you plan it. So as you see on my screen, oh, I'm not going big, I'm sorry. Let me make it big. There we go. The way you actually make it work for you is the way you put your answers. So in the question, when you're designing it, you put the question you want the students to answer. After you have that question, you give them, like for multiple choice, for example, you put the answers, and then depending on how they answer, you then create a new section. So if it's a wrong answer, for example, if it's something in math, it's a word problem, right? And maybe it's a computation issue, right? So my first wrong answer is a computation one. So I'm going to create a section 2 that's going to help kids who are having trouble with computations. Here's my correct answer. They're going to continue. There's no point of them doing the reteach. If they did it once or twice, they got it right. They got the skill. Let's move on to something else. Let's see if they could apply it, maybe some higher order thinking questions. You can move on. You could put some review stuff in there, see where they're at based on their answers. You could have that the wrong answer is because they interpreted the problem wrong. Maybe they chose the wrong operation. Section 2, all about choosing the correct operation to make your math, solve your math problem. So you can really be strategic. And that's why I really love the way Google Forms works, is because you can take the time to create something that's worthwhile for your students. And we all know we have to be differentiating for all of our students. So a Google Forms, the best way to really to differentiate, it collects the data for you. You have, and it is engaging because every kid loves to click things. So for them, this will be great. Put a cute little theme, put some pictures, put some videos, put a GIF of yourself dancing and filling it out. They'll do it for you, no problem. So that's how I really used Google Forms, and I actually reuse them now. So I have a lot of students. Now it's like test prep season, right? So we have kids that end things in different times because of what we're learning and reviewing. So if there has to be a little bit of quiet time, I just go, okay, go get your Chromebook and go by themselves, which is what we want to do. Like I teach 4th grade. My goal for them is to be independent technology learners. And I say it all the time, solve your problem, figure it out. So that's one way to do that for yourself. Pear Deck, it works really well if you have a one-to-one classroom, meaning you have the technology. So you can use 2 different modes with Pear Deck. It's basically different ways to answer your mini lesson. You could put a poll, you could put a choice, and they could come up themselves, just like before we saw with Jade, like the kids can come up to touch things. Here with Pear Deck, you could also, it's an extension, so you don't have to worry about, a new site, entering something new in, and making sure that you have an account, you remember the password. It goes straight into your Google Slides. So it's like really enhancing those Google Slides. And you could really manipulate it so that it could be an independent project, or it could be a whole class, a whole group, small group, really utilizing different methods of answering questions. My students love the Pear Deck because you get to move the pieces, right? Like here's our social emotional. We can have kids move it in the morning if they're coming in, and you can record every single child. So it works both individually and in a whole group. Next, the queen, the king of all game-based learning, which is Gimkit. I think this saved my teaching last year. It kept me sane, kept the kids sane. This was my favorite. It's called Gimkit. And it's basically all those games that they love to play. Like when it was that whole the imposter game, Among Us, when Among Us was popular, they had like a fake Among Us version. So you put all these facts, you could put flashcards, you could put a text with questions, you can put things they need to remember for a test. You could put, I used to do multiplication facts. I used to put division facts, addition, subtraction, any kind of facts to get them, quicker with their fluency in math. And all these different modes would then lead them to practice. And I'd be like, okay, Gabriel has the most points. He gets to choose our game today. So what you do is you go into the Gimkit. It's free. All you have to do is connect it through either Google Classroom, or you give the kids the link directly. They come on in. Even if you have only a couple of devices, they could share, devices, and they could play games. There's so many different modes, and there's so many pre-made things, which we love, that you could just reuse for yourself. Honestly, this is awesome. This is like my fun Friday. This is what we do at the end of the day, because by Friday, kids are tired. They're done. And you're kind of tired too. It's been a long week. And it's just a fun way, they're learning, they're building teamwork because they have to work with each other to maybe do some team player games. There's like infinity mode, there's zombies, there's fish, there's all these different modes. I had no idea how many game modes there were until one day I told the kids, I was like, okay, we got a math test tomorrow. Let's play all the games, all the things to review. And it really got them motivated. It got me through test prep season. So this is one of the greatest things I have. And you could play it whole group, small group. You could assign it. You could give it to them for home. It's such a great tool. Another great tool that I love, Quizlet or Quizzes, which is basically same kind of idea. It's game-based learning. The cool part about Quizlet and Quizzes is that you can do different modes. So there's like a memory where you could practice flashcards, also like a racing one where they answer the questions correctly and whoever gets the 12 first, they win. I give them a piece of candy. We all have a great time. Builds teamwork as well. You can put them on teams. That's how I do my peer tutors, right? I make sure that like my highest kid is paired up with like my middle kid and like they work together. The middle kid learns, the middle kid reviews. The top kid actually gets to be like higher order thinking, like thinking of a way to show them the answer without giving away the answer. So honestly, Quizlet and Quizzes, they're very similar. Quizzes is just a little bit like schnazzier. It's got more pizzazz to it. It has more sparkle. Quizlet is very straightforward. I know my kids really liked Quizlet better because it was so straightforward. It was so like black and white. The racing was easy, and it's just a great way to use flashcards. It's truly reinventing flashcards and the way we use them in our classroom. And Nearpod we saw earlier with Jade. So I'm not going to go into it too much. I just want you guys to see how it looks like from both ends, because the teacher end actually looks a little bit different than the kids. And before they did this tutorial, I used to tell the kids, what do you see now? Okay, go to the next one. Let's do it together. So it's actually helpful to see both sides of the presentation. So basically on the two sides that you have here is the kid would have the right screen that you see here. And it asks the question and it's different ways to answer. So you can do it as a fill-in. There was a draw option, there's card option, there's picture options. And then here, you could check your participation, you could check their answers. If they're being a little fresh and they don't put anything when you answer, you'd be like, go back, give it back to them, right? Be like older kids, which is what the difference is with technology. It's like, how much can they manipulate it? You have to know your audience. That's one of the biggest things. And you can't also expect that kids know everything right away. You have to teach them, you have to show them. And honestly, they love technology, but also like you don't want to overload them with too much, which is why I leave my technology stuff for Fun Fridays and all those other things. Last but not least, I want to show you some people that I follow. Definitely worth, all these guys are YouTube teachers. They're awesome. If you ever need a video to add into your mini lesson, if you don't understand how they're teaching the math, which is a real thing, this is one of the good places to look. Math of Mr. J, he does a great job with that. He taught me a lot of 5th grade math when I was preparing my 4th grade students, because 5th grade math is scary. And last but not least, if you have any questions, put it in the chat. And also I will be giving you that link for that Google Classroom as well, which I have here. So it's going to look like this. It's a workshop. And I'm going to just give you the link in a second.
Thank you for such an engaging presentation, Joanna. You made a lot of great points, and I'm definitely going to take them with me, and I'm sure other people will as well. If anyone has any questions for Joanna, as she said before, you can just put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to get to them during the Q&A session.
Thank you, Taylor. So we already have a couple of questions for Joanna and Jade. The first question is, how has virtual learning helped you as a teacher, and what are some of its disadvantages?
So virtual learning has, as Joanna mentioned, it saves you from when, you don't really know what to do. You don't know how to get your kids engaged in a lesson. I mean, I have to grab the attention of 4 and 5-year-olds. That's a really hard thing to do. Technology sometimes makes it a lot easier than just kind of giving them a worksheet or giving them a craft to do. So that's definitely one of the advantages. One of the disadvantages is, as we just experienced, is that it doesn't always work. And when it doesn't work, don't freak out. I learned that the hard way. I had somebody come and observe me last year, and I was using technology, and it totally just did not work, and it did not go well, and I started to freak out. And my observer was like, there's no reason to freak out. Like, it's okay. Like, we know that technology is not as reliable as we think. So
Yeah, I definitely agree. Honestly, virtual learning was like I would say it was a great experience because of all the things I learned. And it was wonderful to see my students like really work on the tech and be very independent. But also, like, I was remote for all of last year and I never met my students last year. It wasn't until this year, like the first day of school, I like met them in real life and you're like, whoa, you're actually a lot taller. So it was a really interesting experience, but it really does show you how resilient kids are because they took the time to learn this technology, and it's hard, and especially like in different environments, you don't know what they're using, the different devices. It taught them a lot of patience, which is a huge thing with little people. Little people don't have patience. So I would say one of the greatest things about virtual learning was that they had to learn to be patient and to figure out their own problems.
Thank you for those really well thought out responses. Another question I have is, what was the learning curve like when you were first learning about technology in the classroom?
Oh,
the learning curve
go ahead,
was,
Jade.
sorry, Joanna, go.
No,
You're
it's
good.
okay.
Learning curve was a rough one. It was tough because it went really fast. As Joanna mentioned, when we were virtual teaching last year, even when I know my district came back halfway through the year, and I had kids that were quarantining for 2 weeks, and then they would come back for a week, and then they'd have to quarantine again. And it was like, we had to learn to do so much so quickly and get them up to speed with the technology along with the academics. And it was just, it was crazy, but we made it. And now I get to actually relax and take professional development and learn things from the inside out.
Yeah, I definitely agree. When COVID hit, we had to do remote in a week. It was hard. It was like you needed to learn it. That's it. You got no choices. It's like, kids are coming on Monday. Have your Google Classroom ready. Have this ready. Have your lessons ready. Go, 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 go. But I thought I was good with technology starting in. I was not good with technology. Let me tell you, like, the past 2 years, I learned a lot. But the thing is, when you're student teaching, if for those student teachers out there, learn the things that they use in your schools. If it's Smart Notebook, learn Smart Notebook. If it's a Promethean board, learn Promethean board. If it's just a display or your laptop, or you plug in an HDMI cable and hope for the best, or if you don't have technology, there are still classrooms out there that aren't that technology rich. You have to be ready for everything. And that's why, like, having a lot of tools in your arsenal is very good, but not also relying on them solely. I know when the internet went out right before this February break, all of the internet went out in our school. Our school runs on Google Drive, where like our data collection is all on Google Drive. Our lessons are on Google Drive. Every assessment, everything. You literally couldn't even print because all of our printers are connected to the network. So in the middle of the day, all of us were frozen and panicked. Then the veteran teachers are like, I got some old task cards somewhere. Let me just pull them out, start making copies for everybody. Saved our lives. The people who relied on technology, we were kind of struggling. I was a little bit panicking because I had everything planned on with like YouTube videos. So you always have to be prepared and never think that you'll always have technology, because the internet loves to go out in a DOE. Just a word of the wise.
So I have another question for you guys, and I think we definitely experienced some of the technology difficulties from the student perspective, like you guys did. What is some advice that you would give to first-year teachers?
Breathe. breathe. Like, take a breath.
Yes.
Because it's a lot. Technology or not, just take a breath, because it's like a roller coaster, and you're like falling, and you're not there yet, and then it goes back up again, and then you're back down again. My thing is just take it one day at a time. You won't be perfect your first year. It's okay. The kids know. Everyone knows. It's all right. So just to be gracious upon yourself, because we're probably our hardest critics.
As a first year teacher, I can attest to everything that Joanna just said. Seriously, breathe. I've already just muted myself. Sorry, I just muted myself. See, technology, can't trust it. But even with dealing with like parents and stuff this year, and you just feel like, oh my God, I'm 23 years old. Like, I should not have this much responsibility, or like maybe I'm not cut out for this. Stop. Don't even think those things or say those things, because you're here, you're at this seminar, you're at this workshop, you're at St. Joseph's College, you're doing the things that are going to make you the best teacher you can possibly be. And I mean, I started my career at St. Joseph's 2 years late. I went to community college first, and then I learned so much in 2 years. And now I'm a first year teacher, and I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I went there. I'm really glad I spent my time there. But just don't doubt yourself. Yeah. Just don't doubt yourself, because you can do these things. And it's all worth it in the end when, you know, that last day of school comes and you say goodbye to those people, those little people, and you send them off to the next grade, and you know that you're sending them off well prepared.
I think we could all use advice from people who are experienced, and hearing that from like a first year perspective, and even just a newer teacher perspective from you, Joanna, that was really helpful. What resources do you usually use when making your lesson plans?
I'll go first. So my school is actually very different, because we actually write our own curriculum. So most schools, when you go into, they have something already pre-made, right? They're either following Teachers College, they're following ReadyGen, they're following Engage, they're following, let me think of some other ones on the top of my head, Envision, Eureka, you know, they're always, there's always like a buzzword, right? For whatever curriculum you're using. So you also have to know like what your school's expectations are. Our school, like, we make everything. So we know we have to have a learning objective. We take from different curriculums. We see what works for our students. So maybe you need a video for science, give them some like a graphic organizer here. You pull from like different places to try to create your lesson. But the most important thing is knowing your students. What do they respond the best with? You can't bombard them with technology if you don't have laptops in the classroom. You can't, you know, expect them to write an essay if you didn't give them the scaffold that they need. So a good teacher, when she plans, thinks about her students first and what she wants as her outcome. What do you want them to do at the end of the lesson? If you can provide them the tools throughout your lesson, and less is more, believe you me, you do not need a million color-coded task cards. It doesn't work. You drive yourself crazy. Don't do it. Don't do it. You know, just simple things that you know is going to hit A, B, and C, hits your learning objectives, gets them to do the assessment, and gets to your assessment piece. That's my greatest advice. So take it from everywhere, but in the end, know your students.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with Joanna. You do have to know your students, and you also do, as she mentioned earlier, you have to teach them how to use the technology. You have to walk them through these things. My students had never seen a smartboard before. So when they walked in and I'm trying to play games with them and like, okay, when you drag something, your whole hand cannot be on the board. You need to just use a finger and drag, or else the whole thing gets all messed up. And they laugh every time like one of them accidentally, like their sleeve drags on it and like the marker will go and they're like, ah. I mean, I kind of just do it as a resource to give them a break and give them a controlled environment to laugh and to still show some academic learning, but it kind of just lets them go. Like when we did that small, medium, large today, I don't know how many stories I got told about an ant or a puppy, or I have a puppy, Miss Lawrence. Oh, that's great, but is a puppy small, medium, or large? Like, focus, guys. But it lets them get it out, and it lets them also relate real world experiences, because again, we can look up thousands of pictures that these kids have all seen before, experiences, passages, all books, anything. You can look up all of these things and incorporate into technology, and it helps them to relate their real world experiences to their academic learning.
Okay, I have one more question for you guys. How can we motivate students to learn? I think that's a question that all of us ask ourselves all of the time.
If you need to figure out what they like and like blow it up. Like I have, we were struggling with our math facts. So every time they would do a math fact correctly, I threw a cheese ball. You think I'm joking? I used to throw cheese balls. That was one way to motivate them. Do I recommend that every single year? Absolutely not. But I was desperate. They needed to know their multiplication facts. And it was like the one way. I'd be like, animal cracker, sticker? Yes? Okay, let's do this. You know, that was like a last ditch effort. So I don't recommend that starting. Maybe like have a token economy, you know, motivate them through something with a prize. Like this year, my kids are working towards a fun Friday every Friday. So they have to finish their task cards and make sure the independent work is all submitted and checked. And every time, if we have students that don't do it, we take off an F from Fun Friday, they lose a letter and then they got to earn it back. So they have to do, you know, they have to finish their work. They got to be on time. It's creating something that they will love. Like I use Class Dojo technology. If you want to use it, Class Dojo is great, but you have to also keep up with it. So it comes out where you need to remember in your lessons, what am I giving the points for? Do they have value behind them? Like I have things like eyes on the board. I have things like following directions, using the timer, putting away my materials. Those are the things, that's what my kids need this year, right? So that's what I'm giving them points for. But motivation comes from connecting to them, making those relationships. If you don't talk to them like a human being, they're not going to want to learn from someone. No kids learn from someone they don't like. So create a way to make sure they don't have to, you know, you don't have to give them everything and, you know, be a pushover, but be a little human with them. Make sure they have those connections. Ask about their siblings. Listen to those 5 stories about the dogs. Does it deter the lesson? Absolutely. I learned about my kid's six toe today when we were doing fractions. You know, it comes out. So definitely make sure you have that human connection, and that's the best motivator, and cheese balls. But best motivator is human connection.
I have to agree with Joanna about the human connection. When I came in last year, I wanted to, you know, I came in as a leave replacement. I was the 3rd teacher in the classroom by November. These kids had now started the COVID school year in kindergarten with 3 teachers, no stability. They got nothing. And I was like, okay, how do we turn this around? And again, kids love to talk to you. They want to tell you everything, even though sometimes you're like, can you just tell me what 2 + 2 is? But I make time for it. And that's the best recommendation I can give to you. And I do it this year, even with my pre-K students. And you'd be surprised how, like, if I say wait until talking time at the end of the day, that they'll actually like wait. And it's crazy because they know I give them that time since the first day of school. So what I do, and even I'll tell you this year, we just had break, right? We just had February break. The kids were all away. They went here, they went there. They spent time with mommy and daddy. They went shopping, ice skating, whatever. I gave them talking time this afternoon, and no one spoke really all day about what they did over break. They all waited. We were able to get done everything that we wanted to. We were able to play games, have fun, whatever. And then at talking time, everybody let loose. And that is the most respect I could have ever gained from my students by doing this. They respect me enough to wait until that special time. And I show them things too. I show them when I take my dog out to the park and we take pictures. Relate with them. Be normal with them. Be silly. Sit on the floor with them. I lay on the floor with my students when they're playing like Dr. Kit. I pretend I'm like a patient and I play with them and I lay with them. And when we're on the playground, we'll play tag or hide and seek. Like, just be there for them. Honestly, especially with the little guys. that's really all they need right now. And it's one of like the coolest things you can kind of do as a teacher, honestly.
Jade and Joanna, I have to say your responses were amazing. As someone who is going into teaching, I feel definitely a greater sense of like relief and ease through the information you shared. We do have one last question that we want to ask both of you, and that is, how are you handling parents that are unfamiliar with new technology and have difficulty setting this up for their children?
I'll start with that one. I actually had a lot of experiences with that last year and this year. The school that I teach in has over 80 different languages spoken, and every parent does not understand technology. It's a lot of the kids. Like I would do it with the kids. Like I would call them, okay, ready? All right, you see the button? Yes. Okay, go. And like I would literally call them every day if I had to. If I had to call them in the morning, I would do little videos. I would send it to them, how to send the videos. I would do any way to reach the parent, because in the end, that parent needs to know what to do. You know the knowledge, but that parent needs to understand what is going on for their kid, because right now they can't help them and all they want to do is help them. So I use talking points. If anyone ever works in New York City, talking points, you have a million languages in every single school. I promise you right now. Talking points translates your message, so it's remind in text or your oral language. So you could record a message, it translates it, however it does it, and it shoots it out in that person's language. Talking points doesn't have as many languages as remind does. So I recommend either ones. But showing a video, just even like the actions, you pressing which button, you showing like how to press things and do it, is one of the greatest tools. And just having patience. That's definitely what I recommend, and just being there for that parent.
Yeah, I think Joanna kind of like covered everything. That's basically it. You want to be there for that parent. You want to communicate the best that you can. I remember last year, again, kids were quarantining every other week. I was missing a kid. All right, how are we going to log them in? What time are they coming in? Blah, blah. All right, mom's messaging. She's calling the front desk at 9:30. Her son is supposed to be already on by 9 o'clock. They can't get on. Okay, I stop what I'm doing. And I walk over to my computer and I say, okay, mom, here's what you see, right? And she's like, yep. And I, again, just like Joanna said, you walk them through each step. Once you take that time to build that rapport with parents, and you don't make them feel inferior just because they don't understand and you do, you're building a relationship with the parent. It makes them feel better, and it makes them feel like, oh yeah, they not only just care about my kid, they actually care about me too, and they respect me too. And again, that's, as a teacher, you want to build rapport with not only the kids but with the parents too, because again, they're their parents. But yeah, I would definitely say like just kind of explaining things and being there for those parents as best as you possibly can.
Great responses. I couldn't have thought of something better myself. Just one last question for you guys. Are all of these platforms free, or do they require subscriptions and fees? I know that some of them, they're like free as a base model and then have subscriptions after, but take it away.
For I think Nearpod and Seesaw, I think my district has subscriptions for those. Many districts do use them, and if you do bring them to the table and say like, look, this is like a really great resource and would be really helpful, most districts will most likely say, yes, this is totally worth it. During my student teaching and observations, I think I only went to one district that didn't have Seesaw, and then again, I went to maybe 2 or 3 that didn't have Nearpod. Those are very popular resources. So if you do bring it to your district's attention, they will most likely say yes. Be like, yeah, this district, this district, this district, and this district all use it. Can we please have it? Classroom Screen and Bamboozle, they're free for those options that I showed, and then you have to pay for extra stuff, but I don't pay for that because it already kind of does the job for me. And Smart Exchange is free. You don't have to, I don't do that through anything. I looked that up myself when I was looking for SmartBoard resources, and I found that on my own, so I don't pay for that.
Yeah, I agree. Everything that you need is usually free. I look for anything free. I hate paying for anything. So most everything is just, you won't have all your options. And honestly, you don't need most of them. They're a little too fancy for my liking anyway. So everything that you need is free.
Hey. Thank you so much, Joanna and Jade. And that concludes our second SJC Student Alumni Conversations. Thank you again to our alumni educators, Joanna and Jade, for taking the time from your busy schedule to empower our future educators. I also would like to thank Asma and Taylor for co-hosting with me. To continue the conversation with Joanna and Jade, join our SJC Student Alumni Conversations education group on sjcnyconnect.com, the home of our SJC Mentor Program. There are a diverse group of alumni educators and administrators on our online platform who are willing to help you succeed. I highly recommend it. Also, we will be emailing a brief survey. Those who complete the survey and create a profile on sjcnyconnect.com will be put into a raffle for a chance to win some exclusive SJC gear, which includes a blanket, a tote bag, a portfolio, and much more. Thank you again for attending, and I hope to see you soon at our next alumni event. Have a wonderful evening.